So you can see now that we have this multi-track sequence. It created a new little icon in blue that says Evie Wilson Audio. And then we have our individual files, okay? And so what we're gonna do, I know which one my interview is. I know what my interview track, it's my first one. And I'm gonna click it and drag it over here. And then I'm gonna press okay, because it's gonna create it so that it fits the sequences. And there's a bunch of shortcuts, but you can use the plus and minus keys to zoom out. So I'm gonna zoom out so that I can see my whole interview, right? Mine was like 2 minutes. I just did an example assignment, so I interviewed my husband about the food we were eating in quarantine. So you will hear that. But you wanna drag over the file that's gonna be the one, hopefully one of your interviews, that's gonna be one of the ones you're gonna use for the basis of your story. So does everybody have one thing over there on the multi-track? Mine is because I recorded it on a different recorder and it was in stereo. So my recorder actually has 2 microphones on the front. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you all recorded it in mono, so it should just have one. So now this is where we get to edit. So if I think I need to go to my preferences really quick. You all might have to do this too. If you plug in headphones, or if you want to use, if you have Bluetooth headphones or anything, with the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, sometimes you need to tell it where you want the sound to play from. So to do that, you go to Preferences, Audio Hardware. I just have to do this because I have to put it so that it syncs to the display port. Okay, so now we've opened it, we have our multi-track sequence, we've put one sound bite in there, one sound file, and the cursor, I can use my mouse to move the cursor around, but I can also use the space bar. So I'm just gonna use the space bar.
Well, we quarantined pretty quickly.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is, this is me asking a question. So I'm gonna ask a question. And I don't wanna hear myself, right? I don't wanna hear myself. I just wanna hear Jonathan talking about food in the pandemic. So you can stretch this out and make it really big so that I can see my waveforms. But it's important to know, when you're looking at waveforms, oftentimes we start pretty close to silent. And then when you say something, the waveform peaks and gets a lot louder. So in order to edit sound in a way that sounds most like someone's just talking, you'd like to put cuts at the lowest points of a waveform. So instead of cutting like this in the middle of this chunk, I'm gonna cut over here where it's basically just a line. Can you see that a little bit? And when you're listening, what you will hear is that oftentimes, somebody will take a breath before they say something. Those breaths are really helpful. So I think.
Well, we quarantined pretty quickly.
So, yeah, so over here.
Well, we quarantined pretty quickly.
So I can cut here, and I'm gonna select it, and then do Command K. Or this little tool is called the razor tool, and you can just use that and then come in and make a cut wherever you wanna make a cut. It's called the razor tool. It actually cuts it. So right now there's only one clip, and when you cut it, it becomes 2 clips. That way you can delete a portion of it or edit out a portion of it. So we're gonna make a lot of cuts in this project. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the beginning. I'm zooming out, and I'm bringing my cursor to the beginning of the sound clip, okay? And everyone, I want you to just press play. So we're gonna press play, and we're gonna listen to it.
Tell me about your cooking ever since you've been at Panda. What happened with your cooking?
Okay, I don't want my audio to be in this piece. I don't want my questions to be in it. I want them to just say something. So I'm gonna edit out that first question that I created. So I listened and I had the question, And then I got to a place where I was done asking the question and the sound was at an equilibrium. It was as close to 0 as possible. So it's not at the top of the waveform. The waveform is very low. And that's when I'm gonna either Command K as a shortcut, or I'm just gonna use the razor tool and make a cut. And then I'm gonna select, you have to go back to this little arrow tool. I'm gonna select the portion of me asking the question, and I'm just gonna delete it because I don't want it. I don't want it to be there. Yep.
Out of curiosity, why is it different from like Premiere where you can do like in and out? Like it kind of makes that step for you.
Yeah, you can do, there's lots of ways to edit.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways to edit. You could do in and out points in the waveform and then bring them in if you wanted to. If you want to edit in a way that's similar to Premiere, you can totally do that. I'm just going to teach this way, but it probably is similar. All right, so what happened is that I deleted that first section of me asking that question, right? But you can see on the time, this is the time code way at the top. This is 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. So right now there's nothing playing for that first 10 seconds until I get to this.
Well, we quarantined pretty quickly because you were gonna have a baby, and that was a significant risk factor. So what we did was we started to cook in the house more often. It's hard because you get tired of the food, so we had to mix things up. So we bought, for example, like meats we've never bought before, learn how to cook those. We like, I don't know.
So I'm just listening.
Cooking more, greater diversity of dinners than prior to quarantine.
Great. And then it kind of trails off and goes to nothing. And that's when I'm going to place another cut. So you can use the razor tool. I'm clicking the razor tool and I'm going to put a cut there, or you can Command K. And I know that because once I keep playing, you're going to hear my voice come in again.
Really love the.
I think I was here. So I probably asked, what are your favorite meals and why, right? And I don't want that in there again. So what I'm gonna do is cut that out. So again, I can just listen to it. And you can barely see this waveform, it's so small, right? This little bit is me talking. So I'm gonna cut that out again because I don't want to be there. Another thing you can do once you create a cut, a way to do that is if I hover at the side of where a cut is, you'll see this, it went from an arrow to this little red bracket. I can click and hold and drag it in. So that's another way to make a cut. And it's helpful because if you accidentally cut too much, let's say I did this and then I'm like, oh shoot, I wanna actually include a little bit of that. You can just hover at the end and pull it out. So it's called non-destructive. You can always go back to what it remembers the whole sound file that was there. Okay, so we're kind of just going through and cutting out my voice, cut out your voices asking the questions, and you'll end up having these little sections of audio. Okay, so.
Crockpot bistro roast.
Okay, so whatever they say, so you're gonna just go through right now and cut out your sound bites, right? And then you'll have kind of what looks like these chunks of audio of good sound, of good quotes that people say, right? So this is just one, but once you have that, you can decide if you wanna move things around. So you can move things around, or you can just pull it in like this and put them next to each other, these cuts, right? So I can do that. Yeah, and if you want to move it around, I can move it around over there and then highlight everything and move it back over to put it in the right order that you want it to be in. Okay? So that's kind of step one, is doing that. And what we're trying to get to in this is you're starting to lay out the story in the order that you want it to be in, right? So if you ask someone about the dining options and they're frustrated or happy, you're looking for quotes, you're listening back for the quotes that tell the story the best, right? The quotes that tell them what's going on with the story. what we're going to do is you're going to actually, once you realize the things you have, you're going to write a hosted bit to explain the rest of your story so this all fits together. Okay? So this week, you're going to record something that introduces the story and introduces, that tells you more of the radio story. Kind of like Sarah Koenig gives you the host and she brings you into the courtroom in Ohio, right? Yep.
Can you show us how to condense the pieces back then?
Oh yeah, you just select them and you select it and you can move it. And they should snap into, like if you get really close to one, it should snap to where it
Yeah,
goes.
try that a second.
Did it work this time?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sometimes you gotta do it multiple times. Yes. Yeah, I'll try it. Oh, I have a few headphones. So if you know how or you don't know? Oh yeah, yeah. So if you have Bluetooth headphones, does anybody in here have Bluetooth headphones? If you do, you're gonna go to this little apple and you're gonna go to System Preferences. And then in that, you're gonna go to the Bluetooth. And that's where you're gonna choose whatever your headphones should be there. And so you'll press connect to connect it. Okay, great. And now in Audition, once you've connected it on your computer, in Audition, you're gonna go to Audition, Preferences, Audio Hardware. And this is where you're gonna choose your, so you see it says Audio Hardware. Do you see that, Devin?
Mhm.
Then default output, you're gonna choose the speakers that you want, the headphones that you have. You should see them there and that should work. Okay, I'm gonna go get just a few more headphones just in case. So basically you're just going through and trying to organize it in the way that you wanna organize it. Yeah, in your stories. And what you might realize is that you have, okay, we have our first person, and this is the interview we did with our first person, and I've edited out all my sounds, but now I'm gonna drag in the second person. And so I'm gonna put the second person maybe down below it because I want to hear the second person. The way I usually organize both audio and video is that I like to have everything that creates the structure of my project. So basically the backbone is going to be these interviews, right? So I would drop the second interview up here, just next to, this is interview 1, and then this is interview 2. And I would have all my interviews that I want to include be on the same track, that same row. And then maybe track 2 will be where my voice comes in. And then track 3 down here is where we're gonna put those natural sounds. All right, so I like to organize things so that everything on one track or one row is the same. That way I just know by visually looking at it, like, okay, these are all my interviews. Okay, this is my sound. Underneath here are where we're gonna drop natural sounds. So just go through and try to start editing out the things that you don't want in your sound piece, okay?
Sorry, I still remember